All right, so welcome to the HR Supportive Supervisor series. And today we're going to be talking about communicating expectations. This is a series being offered through the HR resources, and we have a few of our different departments collaborating on these efforts. So to get started, each session we will have a topic that we're focusing on, and we're also going to have a little bit of a theme. So the theme for this week is establishing calm and staying connected. So establishing calm with your teams and staying connected is pretty much our theme for this week of sessions. And when I think about that, we're talking about communicating effectively and communicating expectations. This one little quote came to mind. When you can't control what's happening, control the way you respond to what's happening. For that is where your power is. So let's let that sit with you for just a moment. When you can't control what's happening, control the way you respond to what's happening, for that is where your power is. So that's a little bit of a food for thought, because at this time, of course, there's lots of things that we can't control, but then there's things that we can control, and that's how we respond to what's happening around us. And as supervisors, that's especially important. When we start talking about providing clear expectations, one of the things you want to make sure that you are clear on is what those expectations are. So as a supervisor, you definitely don't want your remote workers to ever be trying to read your mind. They should not ever be wondering what it is you expect of them. They should not be wondering what the schedule is or what their availability should be, or should they attend certain meetings or different things like that. And of course, at this time, that might require you communicating a little more than you normally do. That might require a little over communicating, so to speak. It may require a few extra meetings, a few extra text messages, a few extra Zoom meetings, or Skype notes and things like that. But the whole goal here is to make sure that everyone is clear on the expectations. Also, sharing detailed descriptions of what's expected is much better for staff working remotely. So detailed descriptions of what's expected. Again, that just goes to I need you to check on at this time and check off at this time. These are the meetings you need to attend. Here's the information you need to bring to the meeting. Like really detailed information about what's expected. Also, keep in mind that distance amplifies uncertainty. Distance amplifies uncertainty. And so as the remote supervisor, it's really important for us to communicate clear roles and responsibilities, precise objectives, and performance measures. So people that are working remotely, and that's most of us at this time, need to understand how am I being evaluated at this time? Sometimes that's a little easier to understand when you're in the office and you're down the hall from someone, or you're across campus and you're in this routine, you're in this rhythm. So you pretty much know what the expectations are. But when you are in this new setting where everyone's working remotely or mostly working remotely, sometimes there can be a little uncertainty about how performance is being evaluated. Also, think about what's the preferred group communication and collaboration tools. So if your group has discussed, okay, we are going to use Zoom, or we really don't care for Zoom as much, but we really are used to and we like Skype, or Teams, MS Teams is what we're going to use. Whatever the tool is that you're going to use for communication, make sure everyone is aware that that is the tool that you're using and that is what you expect them to use. One way to think about that is if someone has a quick question, do you want them to put that quick question on Teams, or is it okay to Skype you? Or are you saying if they need to have a meeting with you really quickly, do you want them to send you a Zoom link, or do you want them to just text you or call you on your phone? So just communicating, for the team, here's what we're going to be using. And then individually sometimes, how do you want them to reach out to you if they need something? And then ask that team member, how do they want you to reach out to them? Some people are great with text messages. They say, just text me, or they say, send me an instant message, or maybe they're moving about and they're like, well, call me is good. So just making sure everyone knows and what's expected, and also making sure everyone has access to that. So when you think about the communication tool that you've selected to use, it's extremely important that everyone knows how to use those tools. So if you are experiencing some resistance from using the tools, it could be that the person is just not familiar with it. And so that may mean, as the supervisor, that you may need to schedule time to go through a training with your team, or even one-on-one with that particular individual, to make sure that they are okay. And also with that, sometimes you have to think about people's learning styles. People learn differently. So for one employee, it may be great to go ahead and just send them instructions, or send them 2 or 3 instruction videos. And they're like, okay, great, that was really helpful. I watched it, I learned what I need to do, and I'm good to go. You may have another employee that gets those videos and they're like, oh no, I don't know what I'm, that's not helpful to me. And that person, you might need to schedule a 30-minute meeting just to kind of walk them through, like do a test run. And that is part of the supervisory role in terms of supporting each employee and meeting them where they are. Let me go back one more. And then determine how frequently you will meet with your team. Whatever works, at least once a week or bi-weekly. And if you have bi-weekly meetings or weekly meetings with each person already, maybe you don't need to meet weekly with the team, but you really have to think about your work and what it is you're trying to accomplish, or maybe what that person is trying to accomplish. And sometimes that may mean some informal meetings, again, quick Skype messages or quick Zoom messages for 10-15 minutes just to have a good conversation about something. And that may be the informal way, but you may have some formal meetings weekly or bi-weekly or twice a week or daily if need be for a time, until maybe you don't need that. But you just want to evaluate, kind of watch what people need and make adjustments accordingly. Create ways by which remote workers can monitor their own performance and not always have to wait on your feedback. That's a good one to think about too. So again, thinking about the individual, if that person needs a checklist, if you need to meet with them and make a list of things for them to work on, or if you want to tell them, make a list of things you're going to work on, and then when we meet in a couple of days, we'll review what you have. You just want to think about what's the best way to help them monitor what it is they're working on, and also help them feel a sense of accomplishment. So communicating expectations. Continuing that discussion, when you think about schedules and availability, the schedules piece, it might sound really straightforward, but if you are going to an office, it's pretty straightforward that, let's say, for example, you work 8 to 5 or 8 to 4:30 or 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, something like that. Whatever your hours are, they're pretty set, and you're expected to be at work at that time at least. And so these are things to think about. If you have an exempt employee where they're expected to work, at least 40 hours, then you're not really concerned as much about the hours if they need to work a little extra to complete a project. If you have a non-exempt employee and they need to monitor their hours, then you need to probably have a conversation with that person to make sure that they understand what the expectations are for hours. So if they, for example, are working on a project and they work an hour later than they normally would do because they are trying to finish that project up, then that might mean the next day or 2 days later, they take away an hour to accommodate for that. So there's some things to think about and conversations to have when it comes to overtime, making sure everyone understands what hours they're expected to work. They're expected to start at what time and stop at what time. And if they, again, are wanting to work a little extra on a project, maybe they let you know that in advance if possible, or at least right afterwards, and adjust their hours accordingly. But these are conversations you want to have. And then availability. If you expect that person to sign in on Skype, for example, as your way to note that they are available and they are working, or if you want to share Outlook calendars so that you can see what people are working on or what meetings they're in, or their availability, simply that they are free for a quick phone call, then that is something that you want to communicate. If you haven't already been sharing Outlook calendars, that might be something to consider, because it's not as easy as walking down the hall or looking across the hall and seeing the person at their desk anymore. So it's nice to have maybe that Outlook calendar to take a quick look and see, oh, that person's in a meeting right now. I won't bother them. I'll call them or email them and contact them later. Technology and equipment. So back to what I mentioned earlier about making sure everyone knows how to properly use the necessary equipment. Make sure they know how to check their phone messages. Make sure they know how to utilize whatever technology that they need to utilize for their job, and it's specifically working remotely. That may have added some additional technology that they may have not been using previously. So you may want to check in to make sure that they're still okay with how to use these different equipments and see if they have any additional training that they need to participate in, or just like a one-on-one with you or someone else that can walk them through it. Meetings and training attendance, just want to be clear about that the employees know exactly which meetings they're expected to attend. And let's just say they're collaborating. I'm jumping over to collaboration a little bit. Let's say they're collaborating with some different groups on different projects. If you expect them to continue that collaboration and continue those meetings, that may be something to have a discussion about. And then of course, confidentiality and liability. That is something that we all are expected to maintain that if we were on campus. So of course you're expected to maintain that off campus. One way to think about that when you're at home, let's just say you are meeting and you are set up at the dining room table, and that employee is having certain confidential conversations, and family members are walking around able to hear those conversations. So that's something that, they want to be aware that if they're having conversations with people, that they might be a good time to wear earbuds or headphones, or if they can, go to another room and close the door to have that confidential conversation. That's just something to think about. Also, if they're sharing equipment, hopefully they have a UK laptop, or they're maybe even remoting into their desktop. But if they want to make sure that whatever they're utilizing is not accessible by someone outside of the university. So projects and tasks, of course, whatever projects they've been working on, you want to see if there's a need to adjust any of those. So again, working remotely, and especially in this situation where, if it came upon you suddenly, there may be certain projects that you've decided, let's hold off on that one. There may be other projects that you may say, let's move forward on that one. So just making sure that everyone's clear on what tasks and projects they need to be working on. And I mentioned the collaborations, continuing those if it makes sense at this time. Progress reports, that looks different for different people in different jobs, and depending on what they do. You may desire to have them send you an email once a week on what they're working on, or maybe you check in with them every other day and you know what they're working on. You don't need any type of report. So that's up to the individual supervisor to think about the person and the work that they're doing, and do they need any type of progress report. But deadlines definitely need to be very, very clear on different deadlines and expectations. When do you need certain things from them? Whether it be something they've been working on for a while, or it's something unexpectedly you asked for, please, can you get this to me in a couple of days? So that's just, you want to be clear about that. On-site visits, now right at this time, of course, we're not doing necessarily those probably, but generally if you were balancing a remote work and a on-site team, you may have to work with the remote site employees and ask and make sure they're clear on which meetings, which trainings they needed to be on site for. Performance reviews, just being clear on what you're evaluating them on, how you're evaluating them, what's expected, what questions they may have for you. They need to ask those at any time, so forth. So I like in this little box, it says moving away from traditional office space also means changing some traditional management practices. You read that and you think, of course, right? But it really kind of makes you pause for just a second, because if you have been doing certain things a certain way, you might need to pause and think, okay, that's a good point. Let me make sure there aren't some things I need to adjust, whether it be my expectations of the team and expectations of yourself. And are there times when you may need to give yourself a little grace even? So remote participation, I just want to put this slide in to let you know that there are a lot of ways that you can participate in the resources and the services that we offer in HR. You can participate in our consultations and our counseling appointments. You can consult with a health coach. You can attend our workshops and trainings and our live YouTube sessions, as well as our recorded sessions. So that's just a reminder to let you know there's lots of ways to participate and receive the resources that and your team might need. So maybe it's not that you, the supervisor, need this specifically, but maybe you're working with some employees and you're thinking, gosh, they really could benefit from talking to a counselor or a health coach or elder care consultant. Whatever the case may be, just want to make sure you're aware that we can still help you. Here's some information about our contacts and how we can be contacted. But of course, you can always simply go to the HR website and you'll be able to find all of these resources and services on that website. So closing out with this reminder that we do believe in you and you can do this. In fact, we can all do this. We are all in this together and doing the best that we can. So thank you for participating, and hopefully you have enjoyed this presentation as we offer support to our UK employees, specifically our supervisors.